Good job. How are you today?
Doing fine.
Good. My name is Carlton Cartwright. I'm the Executive Director for the Children's Coalition Incorporated. Today is,
23rd.
thank you, February 23rd, 2020. And we're at the Lake Mary Marriott by Orlando.
Lake Mary, yeah.
All right? Okay. And what is your name, sir?
Calvin Posner.
Okay. Calvin. And when is your birthday?
The 2nd of September, 1942.
Okay. And your current address?
4440 Strathmore Drive, Lake Wales, Florida.
Okay. Where were you born?
Baltimore, Maryland.
Okay, and what branch of the service?
Army.
Okay. And where were you when you enlisted? Were you enlisted or drafted?
Oh, I enlisted in Baltimore.
Okay. What were you doing at the time?
Well, I was a senior in high school.
Oh, okay. All right. Were you in ROTC?
No.
No. Okay. Why did you choose that branch of the service?
Well, my dad and two of his brothers and my mother's older brother were in the Army in World War II. And I had one, my mother's younger brother had been in the Navy in peacetime, and he wanted me to go in the Navy and took me to the Navy recruiting office. But they just wanted me to sign up for 4 years and they'd make all the decisions for me, and it didn't sound like a fair deal to me, so.
And who was that? Your parents?
No, that was the Navy.
Oh. Okay. All right. So you backed away from that.
Yeah, and went in the Army, and I have never regretted it for a day.
Okay. All right. Okay, you Baltimore. So from Baltimore, where did you go to basic training?
I went to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
Okay, and how long was the basic training?
It was supposed to be 6 weeks, but they forget to tell you about 0 weeks. So it was actually 7 weeks.
Added one on, huh? Okay. What were your instructors like?
They were very competent, very professional. I met one of them several years later in Heidelberg, and of course he didn't remember me. He had hundreds, people going through. It's back in the '60s, but I remembered him, and he had just arrived in country, so we invited him and his wife over to our apartment for dinner, and we shared some stories, and it was very nice.
That's good.
Yeah, it was.
And that was in Germany?
Yes, I met him in Germany in the parking lot of I forget the command, but it was a major command, and I was going out of the building to the parking lot, and he had just parked and was coming in.
Right.
And we just kind of passed, and I stopped.
Yeah.
And I said, "Sergeant Bennett?"
Right, yeah.
And he turned around and he said, "Are you one of my boys?" And I said, "Yes, I am."
Right. Okay. Did you go to tech school? Of course.
Yes, I did. I went to I went to signal school at Fort Gordon, Georgia.
How long? How long was it?
That was 8 weeks.
What were the instructors like?
They were very, very competent, very helpful. This was in the days of chemical photography before digital photography.
Chemical? Oh, you mean film?
Yes.
Yeah. Right. Okay.
So
right.
So you had to learn a lot of chemistry, and you had to learn about flash points and how you process paper, film, how you stored each differently. You had to learn how to control water temperatures and things like that. So it was very technically oriented.
What was your job?
I was a combat photographer with an 84 Bravo.
Okay. What cameras did you use?
He used 35 millimeter.
Nikon?
Nikons, yeah. The Army had a contract with Canon, but Canon lenses were screw-ins
Right.
then.
Bayonet.
Yeah, and in Vietnam, you could watch them rust. So we used to take them up when the helicopter pilots were going out in free fire zones and just throw them out the door, and the pilots would write them up as losses, and then we'd go to the PX and buy Nikons.
Okay. That was a good one. All right. So your tech school was how long?
8 weeks.
Anybody get hurt through basic and tech? Any casualties? Anybody? Injuries?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay. All right. All right. So after, did you go on leave?
I went on leave after basic training, and from Fort Gordon I went down to Fort Benning to go to jump school.
Oh.
So that's 3 weeks.
Of jump school?
Huh?
3 weeks of jump school?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, the Army always forgets to tell you about 0 week, but
So it's supposed to be 2 weeks?
well, it's supposed to be 3, and it ends up being 4.
4. Okay. All right. Gotcha. They forget, huh? All right. So after jump school, then you went to tech school, or you were done?
No. I went to tech school first, and then I went to jump school, and then I got my first assignment to Fort Hood, Texas, the 1st Armored Division.
And how long? What was your job, and how long were you there?
Oh, okay. I worked for the 1st Armored Division newspaper, and I was a staff. Now they're called photojournalists, but I was actually, the slot I was in was staff photographer, but we were expected to write our stories, and so we had to collect all the information and everything.
Right.
And that's where I really began to learn how to write and things. So yeah, I was only there 3 months. I was private, first class, and I came down on a set of orders for Vietnam, and the orders, the single order was that thick, and everybody on it was an E4 and below.
Okay. Okay. All right. So Fort Hood, how long were you there?
I was there just over 3 months.
Okay. So where'd you go after that?
Well, after that, I was supposed to go to Vietnam, and we were on the chartered airplane over there, and at some point during our flight, the Pueblo was taken.
Oh.
And every other aircraft going to Vietnam went to Korea.
Okay.
So nobody told us,
Right. Surprise.
Yeah. So we're
it's like that 0 week.
Yeah. So we're all in jungle fatigues and no underwear, which is the uniform of the day, and they land at what I later discovered was Osan Air Base, and plane lands and the doors open and everybody's going out, and there was again, I'm still a private, and there was a master sergeant sitting across from me on the aisle, and we get up and we're going down, and he makes the turn to go outside,
right?
And he turns around and he looks at me and he said, "Kid, I don't know where we are, but we are not in Vietnam." It was like 30 degrees out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it was pretty interesting actually how they did that, and I was just an observer. I didn't organize it or anything.
Right.
But they had to find places to sleep for all these incoming soldiers.
Right.
And so they would put you on a bus, and the bus driver would drive around, stop, run into a building, see if there was any room in there. And then he would say, "Okay, give me 2 people,"
Right. And move along.
So I ended up spending the night on the pool table in the officers' club.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they came and got us in the morning, and bussed us down to what used to be called ASCOM City, Army Support Command, and that's where all the incoming soldiers came, and then they went to their units out of there.
Right.
and again, it's in the '60s. There's no computers. Everything is manual, and and so it was interesting. And I was there a couple of days, and everybody who had come in on my flight, they were all gone.
Wow. Okay.
And so I'm in this big, long barracks building with double bunks and a space heater about every 30 yards or so.
Right.
By myself. And there was a big fence outside with wire on top that you couldn't leave. And they had a little squawk box, and you had to wait for them to call your name and go out to the gate. And then they would hit a button, and the gate would open, and it was Company Street. You went across the street, and there was the company headquarters building was there, and you went in, and they gave you your assignment, and you left. And
right.
And finally, they called my name. And I went up and hit the button, and they hit the button on their end, and the gate opened, and I went in, and the first sergeant was there. And he said, go in there. And he pointed to the door, and the door said, commanding officer. And I'm thinking, I haven't done anything. What do they want to see me for?
Right, yeah.
And so I walked in, and there was a guy there in a coat and tie, sitting at the captain's desk.
Yeah.
And I didn't know whether to report, or what. And he just said, have a seat. And I said, okay. And sat down, and he kind of looked me up and down, and he said, I understand that you're pretty good. And I said, well, I hope so. And he said, well, how would you like to work for me? And I said, well, who are you? Well, it turned out he was Sergeant First Class Chuck Whitmire, and he was the bureau chief of the Korean Bureau of the Pacific Stars and Stripes.
Oh, okay. There you go. Okay.
So when he told me that, I didn't care who he was. That's a dream assignment.
Right, yeah.
So I said, absolutely.
Right.
He says, okay, get your stuff, and I've got a black and white Falcon station wagon in the front. Just stow your gear in the back, and I'll take care of the paperwork.
Right.
Yes, sir. And so we drove into Seoul, and we lived in a Quonset hut that was on the street above the K-Mag Club, and we lived across from the Army sharpshooting team, the pistol team. And so they had all the odd units were up there. And yeah, so I was there for a year, and it was my first real assignment. It was overseas, and even though the Korean War wasn't still going on, whenever the North Vietnamese wanted to get some attention, they would send people in from a submarine to a town, and they would shoot it up, and and cause a stir and everything. So it was I was in civilian clothes all the time over there because it was DOD.
Right.
And they didn't want anybody to know who you were because you interviewed the people that you had to, and some of them were general officers and stuff, and so if you're in a coat and tie, they don't know who you are. So, but it was a really good tour, and I really enjoyed it. And
how long was it?
It was a year. It was 13 months.
Okay. So, any casualties? Anybody get hurt? And from basic training to tech school to Fort Hood, right?
Yes.
And to
Yangsan, Korea.
How was the food?
It was okay. I mean, it's institutional food,
right?
But I mean, it was okay. And once I got to Korea, I was on a separate ration, so we could eat in restaurants. And
how was the food?
Korean food isn't very good to Western taste,
okay.
Especially authentic Korean food. If you eat it in the States, it's westernized.
Got it. Yeah.
But when you're in Korea, it's.
What were the people like on the economy?
Oh, they were very nice.
Were they?
Yeah. Had an opportunity to meet several people, and they were all very nice, very courteous. I think the only thing in common that they all had in common was that they all hated the Japanese. So.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, because of the war. So. But.
Okay.
Yeah, it was interesting toward the Koreans I met were all very nice and professional and friendly, and people I worked with were really good people, and
There was no conflict with the Koreans.
none that I was aware of.
Good. Did you have any interaction as far as North Korea?
Yes. Whatever unit you're assigned to in Korea, sometime during your first month, they schedule you to go on a bus trip up to the zone, up to the DMZ.
Really?
And you go up and you walk up this ladder and you look over into the DMZ, just so you know why you're there.
Right.
Okay. And so that was my first time in the zone. And then when the Pueblo crew was returned, it was a big international media event. And they took all the people who were in, at that time it was called Army Information, and now it's called Public Affairs, but
Right.
it took everybody, and they, in order to handle this influx of international media. So I was a Spec 4 then, and I became a bus captain for international media.
Oh, okay.
There were 6 buses of them going up to see the exchange, and the Koreans were very specific about the zone. So as soon as you go into the zone, you have to pull all the windows down. If you're in a train or a bus or a car.
Close the windows.
Yeah. Well, the shades.
Oh.
Okay, and no pictures are allowed.
Right.
And they're really serious about it.
It's like being on a troop train going to Berlin.
Absolutely. So there was a captain who was in charge of the buses, who I was detached to, and his last name was Gelke, Captain Gelke, and he gave us our instructions. He says, you have to tell these people that we're serious, and they have to keep the blinds down. They can't take any pictures in the zone, and they can only start taking pictures once the bus stops, once we're in the Peace Village.
Right.
And I said, yes, sir. And I was armed with a .45, but it didn't have any bullets.
Right.
Nobody'd be dumb enough to give a signalman an actual loaded weapon, So I had a bus full of foreign journalists, and told them, no pictures, blah blah blah. Gave them the speech. They all agreed, and so this convoy takes off, and they were really pretty good. And we got to the zone and we made sure all the blinds were down, and no pictures. And we started. We weren't 10 feet in the zone. All the blinds came up, and they started taking pictures out the windows. and I'm a kid, I'm a Spec 4,
Yeah.
and I got 45 guys with cameras with big lenses, going out of both sides.
Everything they could get, right?
And they didn't care at all, and it's only a short ride up into the village anyway.
Yeah.
So we get to the village. They get off the bus and they run to get a spot, and I went up to Captain Gelke and reported, and I said, sir, I have to report that I failed in my mission, I said, as soon as we got, in the zone, then all the blinds came up and they were taking pictures
Right.
on both sides, and I failed you, and I deeply regretted it, and I'm sorry. And he said, all the buses did it. He said, and I knew they were going to do it because that's their job. He says, I told you what I had to tell you. That's what they told me to tell you. You know? So I did my job. You did your job. Everything's cool. Don't worry about it. I said, yes, sir. Thank you. And I remember his name because I ran into him later in my career. But he was a really good guy, and I'm still in contact with his wife and daughter, and now we're down to just Christmas cards. You know?
Where are they at?
They're in Indianapolis.
Okay. Where'd you go after Korea?
After Korea, I went on leave, and while I was on leave, I get a phone call from a guy that, an officer that I had met when I was in Europe. I'm sorry. I get a call from a guy that I had met in Korea.
Okay.
And I'll tell you about Europe later.
Yeah.
But he says, I just got my orders for Vietnam, and I'm going to the 101st
Airborne
Division of Vietnam. He says, how would you like to come with me, and we'll assemble the best photo team in the Army? And I said, oh, I just got back from Korea. I'm done with overseas. I've got less than a year left, you know.
Right.
And he says, Cal, he says, you don't understand. This is just a courtesy call because I know you. You're coming, you know.
Okay. That's an order.
Well, he never said that, but
yeah, okay.
But then I got the orders, and
right.
Sure enough, so I go.
How long were you in Vietnam?
13 months.
Go ahead and tell me about it.
Well, I got there in December of 1968. Airplane landed at Cam Bay, and I was there a couple days in processing, and a captain and a master sergeant came over to where I was at, and they said, how would you like to be in First Log, which was the first logistics command that was right there in Cam Bay.
Right.
And I looked around. Cam Bay seemed to be a pretty good place, and I said, well, I do have orders for the 101st. He says, well, if they call you, tell them you're sick and you can't travel. He says, because it's going to take me a day or two to get those orders, changed.
Right.
And I said, okay, And but as it turned out, it was like just over the next day. I got called in the morning, and this guy gave me his card, and I asked the first sergeant if I could use the phone, and he said sure. And so I called him up. I said, they're putting me on the plane up, to leave now. Either you got them or you don't. He said, no, I don't have them now.
Right.
It'll be another day or so. I said, well, I'm sorry. I'm heading up to Fubai. So we went back to the Strip. I got on the C-130, and we flew up to Fubai Airport. I call it an airport, but it's more like a farm road.
Right. Okay.
And we landed, and the 101st was about 3/4 of a mile away up the road. And they came and got several of us actually.
Right.
And we went up to the headquarters area of the division at Camp Eagle. And they threw us off and our duffel bags off, and the sergeant major came out, and oops.
And what happened?
Okay, well, he introduced himself.
Hey. What happened?
So he introduced himself, and
Go ahead.
Okay, and he took the packet of personnel files that the senior person in our flight was carrying,
Right.
and he went through them, and we were all standing there in formation, and he said, finally got to me, he said, Posner, he said, okay, you're in the information office, and that's right up the road here on the left. And I said,
Right.
yes, Sergeant. And so I went up there, and that's where I met Major Horvath, who was the division chief of information. And he kind of showed me around that area, and then gave me the bad news, which was, he said, you can't be a combat photographer and not be in combat. So I'm going to send you up to the 3rd Brigade up at Camp Evans, and you'll go out with them on patrol.
Uh-huh.
And okay, and so that's what I did. I got another C-130 ride up to Camp Evans, and in order to fly into Camp Evans, in a 130, the pilot goes like this, and then he goes literally like that.
Wow.
Levels up, pulls the nose up just in time, levels off, they drop the back door, and everybody runs out.
Did you land or did you parachute?
Oh no, we landed,
okay.
But we never stopped moving. Okay. So, he's going this way, we're all going that way.
Yeah, out the back door.
They release the pallet that has our duffel bags on it, and it slides out.
Right.
And he goes up, turns around, takes off.
It's like a hit and run.
And so I'm thinking, what the heck is this,
Right.
And then on the other side of the runway, you could see puffs of smoke and stuff that he could see because he was in the cockpit. We couldn't see. We were
Right.
inside. And they were walking in either 122s or mortars in on us.
Right.
And they wait for the airplanes to land because then they're much easier targets than when they're flying.
Did they get him or not?
No, they didn't.
Thank God.
No.
Okay.
No, he took off okay.
All right, so tell me about a couple of your most memorable experiences as a combat photographer while you were in Vietnam. First of all, how many, you were there for 13 months, right?
Yes, sir.
And what year was it?
Well, it was actually 1969. I got there December 68, and I left January 70.
In your guesstimation, over the 13-month period, how many casualties were there that you were aware of?
Oh, thousands.
You saw, I would imagine you saw a lot of...
Yeah, I mean, I was at Dang Ngoc Vie, and they were taking body bags out by the Chinook load.
What is that?
A Chinook is one of those big double-bladed helicopters.
Uh-huh.
You know.
How many fit in there?
Well, I'm not sure.
Yes.
I would think 100, 150, and that line never stopped. Officially, later, they said there was 87 casualties. Of course, everybody broke up laughing when they heard that.
Okay.
And
so what was it like? Give me two of your most memorable experiences as a combat photographer in the field.
Okay, in the field, certainly Dang Ngoc Vie, which later became known as Hamburger Hill. That was probably the worst thing that I was witness to. And
how far up the hill were you?
huh?
How far up did you go up the hill?
Oh yeah, that's
To the
my
top?
job. Yeah, yeah,
To the top?
yeah. I've got pictures. Yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you could send me some, I'll put them in here.
I've got them in my
Okay.
thing there. So.
All right.
Oh yeah, yeah. That was pretty much the worst thing. And the other, it turned out not to be a major battle, but we went into the Ashell Valley and retook it. And I went in with an Air Force Pathfinder team, and the night before, and you know we're there at night, and these two guys start building a campfire.
Right.
And I asked them what they were doing, and they said, well, we're building a campfire. I said, you can't have a campfire out here. You know what they call campfires out here? And they said, what? I said, targets. You know, you can't. You can't.
Why not?
You can't go campfire. And this one of them said to me, he says, stand up and look around. And I did, and there must have been a dozen campfires out there. And of course, it's nighttime. You can't tell if they're ours or they're NVA's.
Right.
You know.
What does NVA stand for again?
North Vietnamese Army.
NVA, gotcha. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, I was like the lowest ranking guy there. Was a Spec 4 and an E4, and so then one of these Air Force guys goes into his rucksack and he pulls out a guitar case, and they're singing country songs.
Just going at it.
Yeah, in the middle of the A-show at night before. You know, we're supposed to come in and invade. Well, you know, I knew that the 5th Mech was just over the rise. They were coming in first thing in the morning,
right?
And I'm thinking, I'm sitting in the Florida A-Shaw Valley, surrounded by God knows who, and these guys are playing country songs.
Right.
And I said, God, if I ever make a movie, I'm gonna include this scene.
Okay. I'm gonna have to pare this down.
Okay.
Where do you live?
I live in Lake Wales, Florida.
Is that on the West Coast?
Oh no, it's in Central Florida. It's right next to Winter Haven.
How far is it from here?
About 2 hours.
All right, I'm gonna be coming back up this way at the end of March.
Okay.
To go to Jacksonville. I'm gonna see if I can stop by and get some more of this from you.
Okay.
So I'm gonna just. All right. So, were you ever injured while you were there?
Yes.
How?
Well, it goes back to chemical photography. You know, we had to get our film and our notes on the film. You know, who the people were in the pictures.
Right.
Back to Camp Eagle.
Uh-huh.
And so the way we did it was we would give it to the pilots of the helicopters that were going back and forth.
Uh-huh.
And so I was standing there with a guy from the 3rd of the 187th who was their stringer photographer for us, and we were talking about the pictures we had.
Uh-huh.
And a rocket hit a metal container that they had, it's Connex they used to call them, and they dropped it in there, and it had ammunition and medical supplies and that kind of stuff in there. And we were not far from there. The thing, probably a 122, hit it, and the guy standing next to me he took the brunt of it. You know, he's gone. But he took the brunt of it. I'm on the wrong side, it's this side.
Okay.
He took the brunt of it, and I got a piece of shrapnel here in a bad spot in the trapezoid, so I was bleeding a lot.
Yeah.
And so I got medevaced out to the USS Repose, which is a Navy hospital ship out off the coast of Da Nang. And they worked on me in the passageway. There were so many casualties coming in from that battle. And so I wasn't even in surgery. I mean, they literally worked on me in the thing.
Right there.
And it patched me up, and then I went back to Camp Eagle. And took me another day to kind of feel okay, except my head was like this. And for most of the rest of my tour, I walked around like that because I didn't have anything holding my neck up. I had to have a lot of physical therapy to get that up. So that's, I mean, I consider that lucky because the guy standing next to me is not here.
I understand.
Doing an interview with you. So.
Did you get to go home after that? How long were you in the service?
24 years.
Okay. Where's Lake Wales?
Lake Wales is right next to Winter Haven. Yeah.
Okay, I'm not even going to try to finish this right now.
Okay.
This is just going to be part one. Period.
All right.